and it is unacceptable. So are threats and orders to shoot peaceful protesters and further punish the people of Libya. These actions violate international norms and every standard of common decency. This violence must stop. I've also asked my administration to prepare the full range of options that we have to respond to this crisis. This includes those actions we may take and those we will coordinate with our allies and partners, or those that we'll carry out through multilateral institutions.
And the UN's Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has expressed, quote, grave concern over events in Libya. He condemned attacks against civilians and said those responsible must be punished. Kath Turner is in New York for us.
The violence in Libya continues and Colonel Gaddafi is still clinging to power, and the world is looking to the United Nations for action.
The Security Council, as you know, is meeting today to assess the situation and determine whether there are steps the international community can and should take.
Would I like us to go further and have a full United Nations Security Council resolution? Yes, I would.
But at UN headquarters in New York on Wednesday...
Mr. Ambassador, any discussion about Libya today at all?
Sanctions. I've heard about that.
Morning, Mr. Ambassador. Any talk about sanctions on Libya today at all? Anytime soon?
The UN Secretary General cut short a domestic trip and returned to New York for talks with his senior advisers on Libya. But when he emerged to talk to the media, Ban Ki-moon did not stray from his previous statements.
So there are calls in the international community, Mr. Secretary General, for no-fly zones, for sanctions, and yet after 3 hours of negotiation, the Security Council came out with a statement, not even a presidential statement. Are you satisfied with that?
The situation is developing rapidly toward a very dangerous situation. Therefore, we need to very carefully monitor the situation. I will continue to urge in the strongest possible terms for us to stop violence, protect the human rights and the civilian population.
International frustration is growing over the United Nations' apparent lack of action.
Well, you have to get the political consensus first. That produces some words, and then from those words, hopefully you get some real action.
The Security Council remained mute during the uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt. The governments collapsed with relatively little violence. The use of mercenaries and aerial attacks on unarmed Libyans has alarmed the international community, and yet the response from the Security Council may be similarly weak.
Understandably, a few members of the Council are quite cautious about invoking sanctions. Sometimes you don't know exactly who's going to be hurt and whether they're going to make a difference or not.
Several observers are calling on the International Criminal Court to investigate possible crimes against humanity. But its chief prosecutor says Libya does not recognise the ICC's powers. The only way it can step in is if Libyan authorities accept the ICC's jurisdiction or if the UN Security Council refers the situation to the court.
The United Nations Human Rights Council will hold a special session on Friday to discuss Libya, but already its draft resolution is being criticised for not going far enough. Kath Turner, AlJazeera at the United Nations, New York.
To New Zealand now, where people are taking stock of the damage caused by a powerful earthquake, which has so far claimed 98 lives. And they are fears for the safety of hundreds of other people who are still missing. Tanya Page joins us live now from Christchurch in New Zealand. Tanya, time running out for any possible survivors there?
Oh, absolutely. It's been nearly 36 hours since someone alive was pulled from the rubble here in Christchurch. I think you might be able to see just a small portion of it behind me here. This is a pub that's really going to be facing demolition. So that death toll creeping ever closer to the milestone mark of 100, and grave concerns for a further 226 people. So it seems pretty likely, at least as far as Prime Minister John Key is concerned, and I spoke to him only a couple of hours ago, he believes the death toll, the final death toll, will go well over 200. And that's a hugely significant number for, you know, a small country like New Zealand of some 4.5 million people, because previously New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster was in 1931, another earthquake in Hawke's Bay in the North Island, where some 256 people died. So the 22nd of February could go down as New Zealand's darkest day.
And Tanya, as we're talking to you, we've got the screen split. We're looking at some pictures of rescue workers going about their business. Give us some insight into the wealth of resources being deployed into rescue and recovery.
Well, rescue operators here have some experience in earthquakes. It was only in September, a few months ago now, that the same city suffered another earthquake, a bigger one than this one, but because it was deeper and further away, the epicenter, nobody died, the damage wasn't so great. So there are already a lot of people on the ground here, and there were teams, assessing the damage on an ongoing basis, and in fact there were conferences on in the country on the day that this earthquake struck to talk about how to handle another earthquake. Now, there are up to 1,000 New Zealand rescue staff, including military, on the ground here, and some 800 or so international rescue teams have also arrived from about 6 different countries, including a large contingent from Japan, because one of the worst affected buildings, the Canterbury Television building, which police say there is no chance of anyone coming out of alive. They believe there could be anywhere between 60 and 120 bodies to be recovered from that site. Japanese crew are focusing their recovery efforts there because included in that building was a language school where many Chinese and Japanese students were furthering their education in New Zealand, where a country where that attracts a large number of tourists as well. So we've seen iconic buildings like the Christchurch Cathedral, which is the postcard image that people around the world who come to the city to see it will be well aware of. It's lost a large chunk of its wall as well, and it's believed there are up to 20 to 22 people also buried in the rubble there.
Live from Christchurch, Tanya Page, thank you very much for that update. Now, like other recent uprisings, the web is playing an important role. Our web desk is keeping an eye on the situation.
Well, the internet may be down or at least severely restricted in Libya, but the story is still making it out of the country. I'll have the latest of online content.
And violent confrontations in Greece as anti-austerity protesters fight running battles with police. Stay with us.
Over the Sea of Japan, as cool conditions persist, you'll find something to whet your appetite.
More heavy rain showers for Japan over the next couple of days. We are going to see this very persistent storm system staying in the picture for Friday. Take a look at the forecast map, and you can see the heavy rain showers through parts of Osaka as well as into Tokyo. As we go into Hokkaido, we're going to be seeing that rain turning to snow. Temperatures are really not going to get much higher than about 1 degree there. The Korean Peninsula not looking too bad, with Seoul at 6 degrees and Pyongyang at about 3 degrees for them. Well, good news for China. We have seen some drought conditions, especially for the northeastern part of China. What we do expect to see over the next couple days is snow coming into their forecast. Now, just a little bit towards the west of Shanghai, we could see anywhere from about 6 millimeters of snow